I grew up in a very conservative, fundamentalist Christian home. And the topic of sin was always a big deal, whether at home or at church. And the basic idea is that sin is evil. Sin is something that must be avoided. And when you become a Christian, when you devote your life to God, you basically create this barrier around yourself, like a bubble. And in that bubble is like love and God and this more pure way of being. And outside that bubble is like the sin and evil of the world, which you can now try to close off and avoid. And, that never really sat well with me. It just didn't make sense. And I'll tell you why. Because as I got older and I've had more life experiences, I quickly realized that that's just not true. Everyone sins. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not. Everyone sins. Sin is never far away. Sin will always be a part of your life, and there's just nothing you can do about it. Now, I saw so many Christians beat themselves up about this. They carried this shame and guilt for whatever sin that they would commit. And they would go to the church, and these elders in the church or the preacher, whoever the authority figures were in the church, would kind of always say the same thing. They would say things like, you need to do better. You need to devote yourself even more to God. There's something that you're not doing, and that's why you're sinning. And I don't agree with that. And I'll tell you why. Because I think those people who would say such a thing are not being completely honest with themselves. Because even those people sin too. They just rationalize why their sin is not as big as your sin. And so in their mind, yeah, maybe they tell a little white lie or commit this tiny little sin, but that pales in comparison to your bad sins. But that is not true. That is an illusion. Nowhere in the Bible does it describe a hierarchy of sins. Sin is sin. So that person, that religious figure who would say such a thing, their little white lie is just as sinful as your big sin or anyone else's. We're all in the same boat. We're all sinners, and there's nothing we can do about it. So, and again, I'm not saying that like don't go to church or don't pray to God about it, but what I am saying is once you realize that sin isn't going anywhere, it will always be a part of you and your life and those around you, then you would stop taking such an adversarial approach to sin. You would stop looking at it as something that you have to banish from your life. You stop looking at it as some kind of demon that you have to kill or destroy. Because once you realize there's nothing you can do about it, and every time you chop the head off this demon, its head grows right back, you'll eventually go, okay, I need to find a different approach to sin in my life. I have to find a way to make peace with sin. I have to find a way to coexist with sin and not try to get rid of it. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying that you should just say, screw it, let sin just take over my life and do whatever I want. No, I'm saying that you should try to have some restraint, but not try to close it off completely. Restrain sin within reason. Within reason. Trying to eliminate sin completely is not within reason. That is taking things to an extreme that is not possible. Think of it like a thermostat in your home. You want to keep the temperature not too hot and not too cold. You want to find the right equilibrium, the right balance. And if you can do that, it's easier on your energy bill. So think of it that way. If you can strike the right balance, the right equilibrium with sin, there's less internal conflict within yourself and in your life. There's less energy that's being spent on trying to combat it. And that means making peace with sin. That means finding a way to coexist with it and not try to vanquish it or destroy it. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of Christians that would watch this video and be totally against what I just said. But again, be honest with yourself. If you can admit that you still sin, no matter what kind of sin, whether it's a little white lie or a big one, then you must admit that you are a sinner and will always be. And yes, if you want to pray to God to forgive your sin, okay, fine. But consider that trying to have such an extreme approach to banishing it from your life is perhaps not the right approach. And if you could find a more peaceful resolution, perhaps it could bring more peace to your life.